This here is page 17 in part 7 of Burn Pit. The idea here is, it's sort of the idea in this part is that, let's go to might as well set up the next picture. Sort of the idea is Maxine comes back into his life, hinting to wanting a second chance. And it's sort of because of her transformation, he's actually considering it. So the idea is that he's taking Erica on this date to kind of sort of reinforce the idea that he wants to move on with her. And I sort of had this last minute idea to sort of turn it into this like sideshow for a moment. Oh, let's see. It was the initial idea here was that this scene was just going to be the two of them sort of just sitting at the table and talking. So I didn't really. I spent a lot of time putting this together. But I didn't really put in the effort into everything else in this scene that I normally would have. So like all these people, I never bothered to set up to favorite properties, so I'm like stuck going through the entire list of stuff I'll never use. And at the same time, because I like never expected the back wall here, instead of putting a scene outside, I'll show you in a second actually. Maybe I'll look at this. What am I looking for? Up, down, there we go. I'm thinking here I'm going to put the word bubble up, which is why I'm bringing it down, but let's go to perspective for a moment. But I'll show you, I never expected to show the windows, so instead of putting a full-blown scene out there, let's see if this will get me. Okay, so here's the set. Instead of putting the full-blown scene, I just took a sphere and colored it black to simulate night. So the idea is that the light outside is too dark and the light inside is too bright. See, there's my sphere, and this steakhouse is inside the sphere. The idea is you just create like a night. It's supposed to just be a night thing. It's so dark that you can't see outside. You just kind of cheat. In other words, cheat it. You just cheat it. I want camera. And you know what? I sort of put that. It's bothering me that they're looking this way. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of move them. This is the x-axis, right? I don't think she's going to. I don't think she's going to be in it. Hmm. And the other thing I did too is because these were just supposed to be background elements, I just sort of used the standard characters out of the content library. It's going to be 32. What I'm hoping is to just cut it off here. Um, yeah, let's preview. Okay, we'll create my border. And it's sort of like, as I'm trying to wind this story down, it's actually feeling like it's actually feeling more and more like a soap opera. It just goes on and on and on, with no definitive ending. Um, Not really that I don't have an ending or that I'm sort of wandering with the story here more than usual. It's that I just like keep popping, I just keep having ideas. It's like I have ideas pop up that could make it just keep going. I'm not seeing the border here. Right. Okay. So apparently I messed up there. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, I see the border now. Merge down. So it was the idea with the story was that it would always um, kind of follow the arc that it's going on now. Where at this point in the story, I sort of want the confuse. Oh my god! Oh my god! I'm gonna cut her out. So I'm gonna make sure she gets cut out. So um, okay, never mind. Okay, so I should be able to cheat this. Let's see. No, let's leave it open for now. The problem I'm having is because some of these characters are using textures that were designed for Iray, for the Iray render image, and um, and other characters like her. Um, the texture belonged to a Genesis 8 figure, and the Genesis 3 and Genesis 8 um, figure textures are sort of interchangeable. So because the Genesis 8 figures are a little heavier on computer resources, I've been basically loading Genesis. It's the Genesis 3 figures I'm using in this scene um, are using Genesis 8 textures. The two figures use the same UV mapping, so you're able to do that. And for some reason, I have issues like that where the texture doesn't show up. So I think what I was doing one time, okay, that might work. Is you select the figure and just come into your content library under shader presets and DS defaults. Just select DZ default and it'll put the map, it'll leave the maps while kind of adjusting properties and parameters. And when I was doing this yesterday, it was fixing it was fixing the issues I was having with that. So I'm going to see if it'll work this time. And if not, then I will just move her out of the scene and work around her. But this was working yesterday, so hopefully, if this ever renders. This is the other thing, like all these characters are slowing down the rendering in this particular scene. It hasn't been too bad, but yeah, see there it is. See, I've got our texture now. Okay. So it's like, in the previous videos where I keep going on about how the hair was slowing down renders and other things. That's the downside to using the newer figures from Daz Studios, from the Daz stores, is that they are sort of resource heavy. I think the texture maps um, put a bigger load on your CPU, and there's something about the models themselves. I, I think I don't want to say for sure because I'm not really an expert, but I think they have a higher polygon count. Plus, like with Genesis 8, they've sort of shifted to what they call the fiber mesh eyebrows. So, oh my god. So she doesn't have eyebrows. They shifted to these fiber mesh eyebrows, whereas, like with previous figures, they're painted onto the texture map itself. She doesn't have see, so the texture map from the Genesis 8 figure doesn't have eyebrows because the proper character has what they call the fiber mesh eyebrows, which I guess is supposed to give it more of a 3D look, kind of like the hair. But those fiber mesh eyebrows are high poly, so they're going to slow down your rendering, just like the hair. Mm. But getting back to the story, it's like I said, I always had this idea that like at this point there'd sort of be this like kind of growing triangle between Roger, Erica, and Maxine, and not really that it plays out among the women as it plays out in his head. So, we're seeing, I'm kind of portraying his like confusion over what's going on. So, he had the first, I'm going to call it a date, but even though it's not, but he had the first like date with Maxine, and then like immediately takes her out, Erica out, to kind of reaffirm his relationship with her in his mind. So I think this is, what did I say this was, 17? Um, 18, 19, 21, and 2. So maybe the next 5 pages. So what I'm thinking, and you'll know by the time, if you're watching this video, by the time you're actually watching it, you'll know what direction I go in. But I'm thinking for the next 5 pages, I'm going to show him on these sort of dueling dates with the two women, while he's finding himself like becoming more attracted to Maxine and questioning his relationship with Erica, and then sort of like the sort of cliffhanger to this part, and again, I don't think I'm spoiling anything here because with these videos dropping after I post the parts on Patreon, I'm expecting you've already read it. But so the idea is the cliffhanger on this part will be sort of him thinking he needs a distraction. He needs another distraction to keep him from overthinking this problem, from thinking about Maxine, to try and forget her, that sort of thing. And and the idea is he's going to start thinking about this other former veteran that he was never that the doctor never tracked down for him. So if you remember early in the story when he first visited the doctor said there were 5 other veterans that were suffering from were having the issues with pain, and he only found and he's only gotten information on 4 of them. So this whole story, I've sort of like pushed it aside and forgotten about it, that there's this other guy out there that he still hasn't gotten into contact with. So the idea is the cliffhanger has him like with the other guys, he's sort of sitting with the other guys while trying to figure out, a way to forget Maxine and to kind of really get him to commit on Erica. At the same time, he starts feeling bad that he's suddenly reminded that there's sort of somebody that was left behind. There's somebody that he hasn't been able to help. And kind of one of the guys never really sort of connecting dots before is able to give him the name of that last veteran. You'll see how I explain it away. You know, you know, we've been working with these guys for 5 years, and not once did he ever think to say, like, who else had this problem? you know, you got to explain why it took 2 years for him to come across, to come forward with the name. It's the explanation isn't going to be out of the realm of possibility. It's going to be like I never connected the dots before kind of thing. So the idea is it's this part's going to end where he gets the name of that last veteran, and they track him down and pay him a visit. And I think like all that, the conversation, it's just going to be brushed over to probably 2 pages. Excuse me. So the idea is in the last part, the idea was to introduce this new blood and sort of go through the whole muscle growth thing again, one more time. And I think, because there's like no real, it's unlike some of the stories, there's sort of no real build to a huge climax. There's, there's no, this is sort of going to be kind of a soft ending to this story. I'm going to carry over that love triangle into the last part, so that like he's kind of so that in the last part of the story you'll see Roger while he's helping this last veteran, while he's trying to get this last veteran on his feet. Roger's sort of using it to work through his relationship questions. Oh my god, see what I'm talking about? This one's already at 11 minutes and we're not done yet. This is like three people with no exterior background to complicate this. Wow. So it's the idea is that like while it's not going to be a huge dramatic um, climax to the story, it's sort of the ending is going to be kind of oh, okay, that works. I was afraid. Oh, you know what? I kind of forgot to. Okay, never mind. I could have been. Oh, I get to talking. Let's see. I'm gonna grab these. Oh shoot! Oh my god, what is going on? Ah, okay, this is being annoying. I don't have her. Okay, so let's see. Delete keys. The other thing I've got to be careful too is with all the other characters, I ended up loading them onto this particular keyframe. So I've got no. So if I use the delete keys on any of these um, extras, it'll end up defaulting back to the base shape. Whereas, generally when I create characters, also I'll resize their limbs to get the desired height instead of just scaling the character down. So, like here I'm at Erica, the forearm is scaled 93%. Instead of just scaling the figure, I'll scale arms and limbs. So with Roger, I've got to go into hidden properties. All I did was scale the X axis to shorten the arm instead of resizing the whole thing. So that way, it's like doing it like that. Um, it basically gives the shorter characters sort of a stockier appearance, and when I make the characters taller, it'll give them the lankier appearance. They'll come across as like thin, is like a little thinner and lankier. You won't see it here because none of these, but what am I going to do here? Hmm. What? I'm going to step away for a second. I'm going to be back, so just hang in there. So let's see. Um, okay. So I think. Oh yeah. See. Oops. I get. Yeah, I'm having a Joe Biden moment here. That's right. I can't delete the keys, so we'll just go like. Okay, I thought something was twisted. Okay, I don't have header. Not favorites. Aw. Let's see. Not the finger. Ah, okay. Oh, so I step away and I just like lose all focus on conversation. I have to say this is kind of why I haven't been recording a lot of videos for this story. Is because like on one hand where I sort of want the concentration to try and speed this up a little more. Like he should be slowed a little bit. And it's two. I don't. Well, it's not really one reason. It's like A, I've been trying to speed this up. I think two, it's like just feels like there's a lot to, or there's not a lot to that I'm really like, not a lot that I have to talk about right now. I guess feels like there's just no conversation points at this point. Okay, I gotta stop that. And he's got favorites. Okay, there we go. Not the eye. Don't grab the eye. I grab the head. And it's sort of where I'm waiting for pictures to render, spending more time waiting for pictures to render than than actually working on this thing right now. I end up like going off and doing other things and while waiting. So let's see. Okay. Now you know what? Before I render, she's, her eyesight is bugging me. Her eye line. Um, Smile open. Mm, okay, let's just render a picture. Mm, you now. Uh, um, I keep I keep mentioning it. I know I keep mentioning how it feels like this thing is turning into a soap opera, and then I kind of go off on another tangent. But it's like I said, it's like this like story threads just seem to endlessly spin off in my head from this thing. So like the plan was always that um, was to use Brit Lyons as sort of the punching bag for all the employers that wouldn't hire him at the beginning. So the idea is you see his struggle for work, and then you come back, he buys the company and gets rid of the CEO and has his moment of revenge. And the idea was that, like, it would, like, the story would move on, and that'd be like the last we see. He had his revenge, good for him, but it's like my mind just sort of recently just concocts this idea that I think because I'm not going to use, but because I, like, don't want this to go on forever, but it kind of created this idea that, like, or possible, I get this idea for a story thread where Britt comes back to get revenge for losing his job, even though in the story he quits. The idea would be that he wants revenge, so he goes to the SEC and, like, just make up some complaint or fault, something that, like, they did wrong in trying to acquire this company. And the idea would be that he's got this SEC guy shows up, and just like they've been mogging everybody up to this point, it would be like another one of those, like, sequences where the guy's trying to do his job and they're just basically flexing on him the whole time and making him feel inferior. Yeah, that sort of thing. What am I coming in here? Let's save. That's what we're gonna do. Uh, and I hit the Liam. Okay, that condensed awful nicely. Let's paste as a new layer. And I can't blame sort of the render times for why this project is going so slow. I feel like in most projects in the past, um, a lot of times I'll compromise on stuff I could be doing in order to kind of save time, speed up the production of the piece, that sort of thing. So, um, to give you an example, back last year when I was doing Jeremy's journal, the um, the panels in that page were regularly taking 10, 13 minutes for some unknown for whatever reason. Something in that set was slowing the production down, and, like, I think at that point it was insufferable on my end. So what I ended up doing is, you notice I'll render these pictures a lot bigger than they need to be and then scale them down. So with Jeremy's journal, to speed up the process, I was basically um, measuring the size of the box, taking the size of the boxes on this page and rendering the pictures to fit instead of so that they weren't getting scaled down. The pictures would actually render this size. I can show you quick while this is going. Yeah, I've got a little bit of time. So here's Jeremy's journal. Oh shoot. Um, okay. There's a lot of nudity, and I'm not going to show nudity on. Oh my god. How about page book one? I'm trying to think now. So the idea is, so just a heads up, if any of these pictures, any of the nude pictures show up, it's going to get snipped. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do before I go in there, so you know, so you don't lose that. But I'm going to show you. I'll basically show you the size of the. Hopefully, I'll show you the size of the pictures. So let's go. Da, da, da. Okay, I think I'm good here. Okay, so let's see if I get the picture size. Okay, so yeah, if you look at the description there, dimensions 1280 by 720 is smaller than I render. I'll render these. I normally render 1900 whatever by 12. 10. See, no, I can't even. Oh, and I don't have it. See, so this one's 960 by 540. 220 by 220. It's these pictures were rendered a lot smaller than I normally do in order to cut down the time it took to render them. 640 by 360. But the problem is the smaller resolution means that the pictures don't look as good as they do if I scale them bigger and then scale them down. So if I had, so you kind of see this one's a little blurry and fuzzy. If I had rendered this at a regular size like I normally do, and then scaled it to 220 by 220, it would still look sharper than this, even though though the image would end up the same size as this one, it would look sharper. So in order to speed this one up, this was one of the compromises I was talking about. And I've sort of like, I think as I got away from this project, I really kind of regretted it more and more, not just, um, not taking the time. So, ah, shoot, 32. Yeah, okay, so this has to be 33. Um, so the last few projects I've worked on, I've basically just sort of accepted these longer and longer rendering times. This is 33. And sort of like another thing I tend to do is, like in this story, I'm doing a lot of these one-off um, locations. And edit, cut. So, like with previous stories, what I would have done is for this date with Erica, I would have, like in previous projects, I would have had them go back to the pub there where he took Maxine just a couple pages sooner, and just basically reuse that one set for every date that he goes on. um, just to speed it up. So, it's like with this project, I kind of tell myself that I'm not going to make those kind of compromises. I sort of like with this project, I kind of want to put in the oops, wow, the effort a little bit more. Kind of not, sort of cheat a little bit less than normal, than usual. So, I mean, I might come back to some of these locations, but um, okay. So I have all these people grouped, and I don't think I'm going to be seeing them again. I shouldn't. I shouldn't be doing an angle where you're going to see them at the other table. So I'm just going to make that group invisible, and I'm going to forget about them from this point on. See, it's like this couple over here where I've still got them. I've still got them posed from whatever image they were in. And if I ever show like this family over here, they're still looking this way rather disgustedly. So it's sort of like this is just going to go for this page and then move on. But getting back, like, because I didn't want to, because I'm like telling myself I'm not going to compromise. I just sort of want to experiment with this piece, doing everything that in previous projects I would have said I don't need to do. I can get away with doing Y instead of X. In this piece, I'm playing with doing all that stuff. So, like, instead of using the pub for this date, I kind of spent pretty much a full day staging this, even though um, I'm basically using a prepackaged set. This isn't something I've like constructed myself. This isn't something I've sort of redecorated. I just sort of took this out of the box, and it's between like grabbing generic characters. I've had to kind of retexture everything because most of this stuff is textured for iRay, and I'm not using iRay. And then posing all these characters, and as you can see, there's um, all these characters are putting a drain on the program, so it's lagging just a little bit. So, it's basically, well, no, I can't say it was a day. I sort of allowed this to eat up a full day just for probably 2, 3 pages. But it's probably more like half a day because I did get a couple pages out yesterday. Oh, I'm trying to think. There was something I was going to expound on or add to that previous thought. But I get going on these tangents, and sometimes I forget. I sort of lose track of the initial of some thought that's in my head, and then it'll pop up like 2 panels later. I'm just gonna crop this to selection so it's a little less. Oh, I remember what it was now. Yeah, I had a side thought when I was talking about the lag on the viewport there. It's the idea is you see it lagging when I try to try and rotate the camera or the scene or whatever. It's not smooth and instantaneous, and it goes the same way when I'm trying to. I controlled seed that, by the way. Um, Sometimes I forget you can't you can't see what's going on the keyboard. um, I flip that. Oh no, actually no. Let's just flip it back. Let's just say bye. But way back when I was working on the fourth Shrimp of the House story, the babysitter, not the babysitter. I had created this massive neighborhood set outside of their house because I wanted to do some exterior scenes. So I had a bunch of houses made up, tucked away in a file, and then I just kind of moved them. I just sort of like copied them and moved them all about and created the big neighborhood scene that you see. And and that ended up being like such a high polygon count that it became almost impossible to work in those exterior scenes. Layer transform. And similarly, let me get what this is. Um, um, at that time, I was using a different laptop when I was working on that one. I've kind of since replaced that laptop, so it wasn't as power. This one isn't like a super monster machine either, but it's got a lot more power than the one I was using back then. I'm trying to inch this up without like overshooting it. There we go. And I had like so many characters thrown into the party scene that those interior shots became impossible to work with because there was so much there was so much in that scene to work with. And honestly, like to give you let you in on a little secret. Honestly, that's why that story was only 75 pages. It was only 3 parts instead of 4 because it just became such a drag and it was so miserable to work with. I was just like that. It's just I pared it down as much as possible and just got it done. Save. You know, it's funny. I'm not usually one. I'm not usually one to hit save. To save a project frequently. So you haven't seen me save this. You never see me save this file. Not that I don't save every now and then, but it's I'm the kind of person where like I just will forget. I just like forget all about like saving and backing it up frequently. But for some reason, like here in GIMP, it's like every action I find myself hitting save, and I'm gonna close. I'm gonna close this soon. I don't know if it does it in this particular build of Daz Studios, um, but in previous versions, if I try to close these um, failed renders while I've got another render underway, it has shut down the program completely. So if like I said, I don't know if it does it in this build, and I'm never interested in trying it. But it's we see that. And while I'm going, let's close this. But I have in previous versions of the program kind of absent-mindedly closed it in the middle of another render, and it just shut down the entire program. And going back to saving, if I hadn't saved in a while, it's like, oh crap. Suddenly you've got to go back and reposition everybody. Uh, you know what? Okay. I know that's probably overshot it a little too much, but I think the picture can stand. The image can stand to be moved. So, oh no, okay, no, it's fine. So now we will make this. Select. I have to say, like, ironically, let me see. I'll finish that thought as soon as I get his hit pose, but no, his eyes. The eyes are bothering me. Oh, I see. I grabbed up, down, not side to side. That's why. That's why they're bothering me. Okay, yeah. Like he's not quite looking at her. This is going to be 35, right? Yeah. It's like ironically I do these stories, and it always feels like just pages without sort of dialogue. Just watch, either the um, whether it's like I think with David's Nightmare, where it's just the character silently playing with the set, or like in this story where I'm constantly doing the scenes in the gym where they're working out and there's no dialogue. It always feels like that's um, even though that's kind of like the money shot, sort of like whatever you want to call it. Is it that's just sort of the like the cherry on top of the ice cream kind of thing. That's the dessert of the meal. It always feels like it's like working on this. It always feels like sort of those sequences. There just always feels something wrong with with those kind of sequences. Like almost like the story isn't moving. Um, I don't know. There just always feels like it just feels like I guess like with the dialogue, like your eye is on the page because you're reading the text, so your eyes are fixed. Whereas you've got like a big page where you've got a big page with no dialogue. It feels like you're just skipping past it because there's nothing to read. It's just like I don't know. Like I guess to compare, I got to give him a word bubble. I don't know um, how many of you watch the Irwin Allen series, Land of the Giants. I think that show kind of suffers from sort of the same problem that I guess I'm trying to. I guess I have issues with like ideally like the whole point of that show is to sort of see the characters like interacting with giant props or like interacting with the giants. It's Village of the Giants, like people in a giant world. You want to see them like interact in that world, but in practice, there's something about it that's just not as interesting. Just watching these characters play with the giant props for 10 or 15 minutes. It's like you'd think the point of the show would be the interesting part, and it turns out it's not. Like at least for me, it's not. I guess I've seen like critics sort of like kind of complained about the same thing, and I think even some of the actors had taken issues way back when that like there's just no character, there's no character development because there's like no character development, no character growth, no, it's like the point of the show is just watching them play with giant props. What am I going to say? Oops. Let's see. Okay. I did bold that, right? Okay. I'm probably going to cut out here in another minute as soon as I got this. Instead of instead of waiting for that picture to render. Okay, I need to step away for a moment. So this will be a good time to take another break. Down there. Save. So it's like that's another thing I've done. I've wanted to do differently with this project before I take off here. I kind of finish that thought is to go ahead and like give those is to just do those scenes. Sort of did the same thing with like did I call it David's Nightmare? I meant if I said David's Nightmare earlier, I meant Grounded. I might have said Grounded, but I did that with Grounded. Was the whole point of that story was to kind of watch him play with the set, but it sort of loses its interest, after about 10 or 20 pages. So you end up letting the story take over, and that kind of aspect of it sort of falls in the wayside. But I'm gonna cut out here for a moment while waiting for this one, and I'll be back when this is done or whenever I'm done. Okay, I've got the picture here, and let's save. File open as layers. Scale that one. I think I'm gonna go small so that I can end this page and this scene on a wide shot. Just a little bit. Get some. Okay. Okay. So what I want to do, because what I want to do is just a big wide shot of their empty table. So speaking of like shortcuts and cheats, I did sort of opt to make this look like they haven't been served yet, so I wouldn't have to spend the other half of yesterday. Setting the table for 2 pages. Let's see, current used. Let's enter these manually. And then I want, there we go. In the part of me that's probably ADD. End up bouncing from the head. Let's see. Bouncing from work on the arm to the head. I'm gonna, no, let's bring it up so I've got room for a word bubble. And I want to see how close this hand is. Because, I mean, with the camera angle, I can cheat it, kind of cheats it, so I don't have to be perfectly touching the arm, but I just want to see what I've got to work with. Now let's close his mouth. That'll work. Let's throw a little bit of glare. And let's go back to the camera. Curl the hand a bit. Fist works. Okay, let's start with this 136. Layer to image size. You'll forgive me if my kind of tone is kind of died off a little bit here. Select invert, shrink. Sort of probably the too much information category, but my stomach's been just a little uneasy since I started recording. It's like, what am I doing? I'm just kind of fading out. So I know it seems counterintuitive, but I've got a small pizza in the oven. Get something in my stomach. What I'm going to do now, I said I wanted a text bubble. Control C. So it's not like I'm queasy this second. I'm just kind of like, ugh. I think it's just my mood is kind of down right now. This text might end up changing, but I'm going to keep it for now. Actually, I'm not going to spread that out like that. Break. Let's go there. Okay, that works. And I'm just going to use this box since the hole is going to get covered. What am I? Yes. I'm so used to doing the boxes for the pictures. Kind of forgot for a moment there. And cut. That's it, right? Okay. I got it right that time. That invisible. And just to make this a little easier to work with, let's cut the layer 2 selection. And I want it somewhat centered. So there. There. Too, I think this is one of those nights while I'm talking with you guys and working on this, I've got so many kind of thoughts coming in and out of my head. Sort of had something I wanted to say, but it's again one of those thoughts that was coming and going while I'm talking and working. Speaking of my pizza, I've got to watch the time here. It should be done just in time to take it out of the oven. Right? Because I think I'm at the point where it's all the complicated rendering is done and it's going to move quickly. Yep, I can see it. You can see the divide here. So you just watch it. Eee, there goes another line. Uh, I think, so don't quote me on this yet, but I've kind of decided that I'm going to pull everything out of Kindle Unlimited again and open it back up on Deviant. Open all the books on Amazon up on DeviantArt. And I'm sort of thinking, and I'm not entirely sure, but I'm sort of thinking of doing like a book of the month kind of thing, or take an old, because I've got them out of Kindle Unlimited and I'm free to, I'll be free to do what I want. I'm thinking of putting one one book from the back catalog up on Patreon for patrons, for you patrons, and and for anybody new who who signs up. Sort of an older book up, maybe like a new one every month. And the idea is it'll only be up for the month, and then I'll delete it and replace it with something else, with a new one. Open his layers. So now I'm just kind of getting burned out mentally here. But okay, yeah, that works. Wide shot. So the idea is to sort of, is because everything has everything, because it's the stories that go to Amazon get deleted because of the Kindle Unlimited restrictions. It's sort of, the value is, there's not a lot of patron only posts up to new subscribers. I do a layer two. So I think if I offer something old but new every month, it might be another. It might be. Oh, excuse me. Um, it might be a good draw, and for anybody, any of you who might have read some of the older stuff through Kindle Unlimited instead of purchasing it, it'd be a way to revisit it. If you want to revisit a story, but you can't because it's out of Kindle Unlimited, it might be a good way to pick up another story again. But again, it's like I'm thinking of it right now. And two, if I decide down the road to put everything back into Kindle Unlimited, that idea, will end up having to be stopped. Um, what am I doing? Image, flat file, export. And I'm on JPEG, so let's hit enter and export. And I'm not, and it's like talking with you guys on this, helps me brainstorm a little bit. So I was just thinking, talking with you guys on that, I was just thinking, and I don't really know if it's feasible. I mean, not. I mean, I know it's feasible, but I don't know if it's something I'll to break time away from. Um, it's possible I could use it to kind of create new content in some way, shape, or form. And again, I'm just sort of brainstorming off the cuff here. Even if it's something like a new cover, or I don't know, but it's possible. But let's see. Your arms are bigger than my dad's. Liam, Ethan, you boys come this minute. Aw, bye. Those two were so cute. You were right. This isn't so bad. Do you still want to leave? Because we haven't ordered yet. I brought Erica here to focus on her. Instead, I'm now thinking about those two kids, about our previous talk, about having one of our own. That is page 17. Oh my god. I hope you enjoyed that. I know it was very talkative, probably longer than usual. Um, but again, I want to say thank you. Um, I really, really do appreciate your support, and actually, I kind of appreciate that you like the work a lot better than, you know. Oops, I think I like really appreciate how much you guys enjoy it. I think that does mean a lot. And I hope this one has been enjoyable, and I hope the next one is. And I will see you next time.